거의 대부분의 시작과 끝이 항상 팀워크라고 생각하고 있습니다.
Hello and welcome to the Gold Club World Championship, where we have 8 of the best teams from all over the world here to battle it out. I am Dreadnought, and with me is Dunktrain. Dunktrain, how are you feeling?
Dread, I am so excited to be here at the World Championship for Gold Club. This is right after BlizzCon. All these teams have so much to work for, and they want to prove themselves again. They just got an opportunity. Some of them didn't do it as well as they wanted to. So this is their time to show back up. Some teams are coming off of highs at BlizzCon, performing insanely well. You know Ballistix wants to prove they can still do it. So this tournament is going to be amazing.
I agree. I think there are a lot of storylines that are going to be proving that maybe there was a fluke at one point and they can outperform, or maybe that, again, Ballistix showing that they are still the world champions. But as I say that, we are moving on to the format for this tournament is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past in competitive heroes, and in my opinion, an absolutely awesome one. We have 8 teams that will be playing best of 2s in a round robin style here in the group stage. Then if you win 2-0, you get 2 points. If you go 1-1, you get 1. And if you end up losing both your games, you get 0 points. At the end of the group stage, we'll have the top 4 teams will then be moving to a winner's bracket, whereas the other 4 will then be moving on to a losers. And then we have the knockout stage, Dunk.
The knockout stage is going to be amazing at the Beijing Water Cube. I'm so hyped for it. And these round robin formats give the teams so much time to learn and grow, and I think that is something that is going to be amazing to watch. The meta develop and how the teams shift over the course of this tournament. Plus, you're still playing for something. You're playing for that positioning into the double elimination bracket, or will you only have 1 tournament life? So there's just so much on the line here for these teams.
I completely agree. And not only are they playing for the positioning, you know, when it comes to the seeding and everything else, but there is a lot of money on the line here into this tournament. And as I say that, we can look at some of the prize pooling here, as the first place team will be taking home 90,000 US dollars. Their second place will be getting 70,000, third place 50,000, and all the way down, everybody getting the individual scaling depending on how well they perform. And I mean, this is a lot of dollars. We just got out BlizzCon, as you said, and we're moving in, and there's still just so much for these teams to be able to earn.
These teams, I mean, you must be in heaven if you were a player and you get to go to BlizzCon, then you get to come to Gold Club, and there's so much on the line here. There's so much to work for. There's never been a better time to be a professional Heroes player on the global level. You have so many things coming up, not even considering 2017 yet.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And as you can see, here are the teams that we have here. 3 are going to be representatives from China, 3 from Korea, and then we have a representative Astral Authority for North America and Team Dignitas for Europe.
There are so many storylines waiting to happen here among these 8 teams, Dread. I mean, Ballistix, like I said, wants to prove they can still do it. Historically, world champions, not the best after their win. Other than that, Dignitas, you know they have something to prove. The love of Europe, they showed up to BlizzCon, they did not perform how well they wanted to. So there are so many teams who have things to prove or storylines to build, and I'm just so excited to see 3 Chinese teams and 3 Korean teams in one global event for the first time. It's amazing.
I completely agree. And one thing to also appreciate that we have here at the Gold Club World Championship that we haven't had at some of the other World Championships is the fact that the Chinese teams do have their entire rosters here and they're on home territory, which means they are going to have a lot to prove that show that we're finally here together as we want to be, and we are going to thrive. But we do have today's matchups here where MVP Miracle will be taking on Ballistix in game number 1.
Absolutely. So we have a jam-packed roster of games for you here today on the English stream of the Gold Club World Championship. We will be starting, like Dread said, with Miracle Ballistix. An excellent match for those of you who are not super familiar with Miracle. They are a team from Korea, sister team to MVP Black. We can expect great things from them. Now to round out the rest of yesterday, we will have Super Perfect Team versus E-Star, E-Star versus Dignitas, Astral Authority versus MVP Miracle, and to finish it off, Astral Authority versus E-Star. All 5 of these matches are going to be amazing, Dread, and I can't wait to see the Chinese teams playing on home territory and not have to be the one playing against them, because let me tell you, it is a different thing when you're playing Chinese teams on their own territory.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one thing that's awesome as well is that we saw with that formatting and the matches we have today is we start off Korea, and then we do have the China versus China right out the gates, having the teams play against the teams that they feel most comfortable with, the ones that they know so well. And as you brought up kind of with the format that we have, the round robin, how the meta is going to develop between these two. But as we said, we do have MVP Miracle and Ballistix as this first game, so let's see what MVP Miracle did to prep for this tournament.
MVP Miracle is one of the strongest teams in the world. People don't really know that about them yet because they haven't had a big international tournament like this. MVP Miracle is one of the teams that makes people say, fans say, there should have been 3 Korean seeds at BlizzCon because they definitely deserve to be there. They didn't make it to the BlizzCon tournament, but they're here at this first international event for them. I think they're going to do a great showing.
사실 저희가 블리즈컨 진출을 위해서 모였던 팀이었는데 블리즈컨 진출에 실패하고 나서 다들 좌절에 빠져 있을 때 이 중국에서 열어준 대회가 저희를 다시 희망에 차게끔 해준 것 같아요.
好，我们恭喜 MVP Miracle 也是获得了咱们外卡赛的一个出线权。
아무래도 저희 팀 자체는 이번 세계대회가 처음이라서 저희한테는 엄청나게 큰 기회죠. 세계 강팀들이 모여있고 이번에 여기서 저희가 활약만 보일 수 있다면은 저희 팀도 세계 강팀으로 이제 도약할 수 있는 기회잖아요. 그래서 저희한테는 등용문이라고 생각합니다.
그러니까 분위기를 많이 타는 팀이라서 한 번만 분위기 흐트러지면은 어떤 팀한테도 질 수도 있는데 분위기만 살면은 그대로 이어가면은 우승까지도 바라볼 수 있는 팀입니다.
要建成一个疾风步啊！这个吹风非常漂亮。 惨啊！都要死吗？
그러니까 싸움만 붙었을 때는 진짜 잘하는 것 같아요.
대회 시작 전에 딱히 하는 말은 없는데 그래도 다 같이 하는 말은 그냥 이기자 그 정도인 것 같아요.
언제나 목표는 우승을 향하고 있습니다.
네, 좀 아무래도 그런 게 있고 네, 잘해보려고 왔죠.
네, 아무래도 숙소에서 하루 종일 게임만 하고 그리고 MVP 블랙이라는 강력한 연습 상대가 있기 때문에 연습으로 뭐 환경이 안 좋다 이런 핑계는 이제 못 될 것 같아요.
Not every player on MVP Miracle has international experience yet. They haven't played on a big stage like this yet. When the going gets tough because they will lose matches. There will be tough times in this tournament. It's important to just keep the momentum going and make sure they don't lose sight of what they're here to do because winning this tournament would be amazing for them. It's their first international event. I think it's just important that they basically keep their composure when things get tough.
And I really feel like that put it perfectly, that this is a pivotal moment here for MVP Miracle, being their first international tournament and being, again, from one of the most dominant, pretty apparently, the most dominant region in Heroes of the Storm, which is going to be Korea. They have so much that they want to prove here, and I'm really excited to see them right out the gates going against our current world champions.
Absolutely. You know, coming from Korea, we talk about this a lot, but it feels like they have so much to prove. And I feel like they're going to be hungry for this victory.
Yeah.
They want to show the world that they deserve a spot to be able to play on this world stage because they haven't had that opportunity. And I think this is really their moment to show we deserve to be here.
Yeah.
We deserve to be at this tournament. We want to show the world what we can do.
Yeah, I think I would put that storyline a lot to what we saw with, like, for instance, maybe Fnatic at BlizzCon. Is like when you have those regions that have some of the more dominant teams kind of barely make the cutoff or barely can't make the cutoff, like Miracle, that they just, when they get there, they want to outperform what anybody expected from them. But I mean, talking about great performances, versus Ballistix here. On the other side of the table is just Swoi, Nachojin, Nobles, Zhengha, and SCSC. These guys just put on a clinic on how to have synergy with drafting. I mean, I can't find a hole in their gameplay a lot of the times. There's very rarely do I look at a team and I go, I don't know how to take them out.
You're not the only one who can't find holes in their gameplay. It seems like none of their opponents can either, Dread. So they have just been absolutely dominant over the last few months, winning BlizzCon, as we know. Now, we mentioned this a little bit earlier. Historically, teams have struggled after winning those global championships.
Yes.
Ballistix, it's only been a couple weeks. Ballistix, have they had time? Are they ready for this win? Are they still hungry? You know, do they have the fire still? Is that going to be the storyline here? MVP Miracle, are they hungry enough to take out Ballistix maybe? How do they feel about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And as you said, they kind of have that struggle directly after winning that World Championship. Granted, this is soon enough that I think it might not be directly translate, but it is something that we do need to consider. But we do have the map picks and bans here as MVP Miracle banned out Garden of Terror, Ballistix banning out the Braxis Holdout. So our first map, Ballistix picks is going to be Dragonshire, and Miracle has gone with the Infernal Shrines. And one thing to already note here, the fact that Ballistix is going to Dragonshire. It's not one of the most picked maps across the world, but Ballistix is by far, in my opinion, the best team at this map.
It gives them extra advantage that not that many other teams even play it. We have seen this time and time again. If a team selects a map, one particular map, and they become excellent at it, suddenly you have to ban that map out. But what happens when they're amazing at 2 maps or 3 maps? Suddenly it gets so much more challenging to prepare for that match. And, you know, Ballistix just abusing the fact that not only are their hero pools amazing, their drafting is insane, but they excel on this map that a lot of teams don't know how to deal with.
Yeah, I think the fact that we typically have this, like, Dragonshire is a map that forces everybody to have extremely good individual decision making, and you cannot hesitate when you have that. And typically, even off of that map, usually the world champions are the ones that thrive at that the most. So beyond the fact that they're so successful as a team, this map is only going to typically complement their strengths as a roster. So I'm really excited to see that come into play here in this game. And as we say that, we are going to be getting into the draft. And now, because Ballistix did choose the map, that means that we see MVP Miracle, is going to be the first pick team.
Absolutely here. They are just figuring out their ban right now. Miracle, there are so many options on this map. We haven't really discussed what's strong here yet, but you think about this map, what really strikes me is globals. Historically, globals have been amazing, but let's not neglect the Zeratul, who recently got changes and is an absolute monster right now. So if you don't feel comfortable playing him, it makes a lot of sense that you'd ban that out for MVP Miracle.
Yeah, and as we see at every World Championship, Zeratul seems to have a lot more pressure there than any of the qualifiers over the regional tournaments. And now, not only is this another World Championship where I expect him to have great impact, but as you said, that rework for him is something that I think every team here has to have that in an arsenal now. It is no longer, well, we might have a pocket Zeratul here or there. He is going to be at the forefront of a lot of these drafts. And we say that, Ballistix actually banning out the Tassadar here in the second slot.
That's very interesting. We have seen some of the dominance of a lot of these shielding heroes. Zarya, Tassadar have been very good lately, so it's not really surprising to see that locked out, but I am a little surprised they didn't opt to maybe look at a global or something on their ban. And we see Miracle immediately going for that fall stat. Monstrous hero has fallen off a little bit lately, but when you come to Dragonshire, you have to be prepared for these globals, and we see both teams obviously are.
Yeah, the prioritization on the globals from both of these. I can't help with the letting the fall set through. I think the main reasoning is the fact that Miracle wanted one of the 2 globals, if you will, and that they show the prioritization of the Murden, which ETC would be one of the few other than Dahaka globals left. So essentially saying, we know we want the Murden, so we'll give you 1 global and we'll take the other. If they were to isolate that, then suddenly they don't have that to their strengths here as a team. So already a heads up plan here coming out from Ballistix into the draft as we move to the 2nd and 3rd pick here for Miracle. What do you expect from this?
Well, you have to look at a tank here. Wow. And as I say that, they immediately go to Dahaka. We have not seen Dahaka prioritize this highly at all. No, I mean, we've seen Dahaka kind of sneak his way back into the meadow, burrowing in there in the last couple picks, but right now in the 2-3 slot as first pick, that is a huge paradigm shift for this meta.
Yeah, and as we saw at the tournament at BlizzCon, specifically Fnatic was the first team to really be valuing those globals on a majority of the maps. So much so they were able to beat MVP Black with the global strategies, and then Ballistix's entire draft was targeted towards removing those comfortable heroes, for instance, ETC, and it just shows that the influence that Fnatic had on the meta, even here at the Gold Club World Championship, the fact that Falstad, Brightwing, Dahaka have all been the first rotation, and like Dahaka again, it only met at the back half of the draft for all of BlizzCon.
Dread, would you have believed me if I told you before BlizzCon that you would be saying how much Fnatic has impacted the global meta after their BlizzCon performance?
No.
I mean, that is the world we live in. Heroes so diverse, and these teams can have amazing performances, and Miracle is looking to do that same thing here. Not as much global experience. And, I mean, their work is cut out for them, though.
Yeah,
their
that
work
is
is cut out for them.
So do we, I was going to say, do we see the Malfurion? Just because with the Brightwing prioritization on the side of Ballistix, they essentially are choosing, do we want to be chokeholded out of the Malfurion because he is so dominant still. A small synergy in the fact that you can get the tongue coming out from Dahaka, the drag into the snare, or the roots that are coming out from Malfurion, plus just overall an absolutely phenomenal support in the current meta now. So what are you looking for? Johanna removal for Ballistix, surprising considering Ballistix is one of the highest, or at least most comfortable team when it comes to that, but the fact that they do have the Murden, it shows that they think Miracle wants it as well.
Absolutely. I think they expect the Dahaka to be the top solo laner,
yeah.
So they don't want to allow Miracle to have a strong 4-man with that wave clear tank. Ballistix, on the other hand, already has Murden, who traditionally has not excelled at the rotation-based gameplay of Dragonshire, other than the threat,
the kill potential. Yeah.
That's really what we're talking about this Murden. So I think it's a really heads-up ban by Ballistix to make sure MVP Miracle doesn't have that ultra-safe wave clear tank. And then Miracle responding with the ETC ban is... Ooh, Tyrael picked up here.
I love this choice coming out from already Ballistix here. Tyrael is, the performance they had on their Tyrael, it seems like they were, again, one of the only ones using this such a powerful hero, and he's one that pops up at every World Championship the same way that Zeratul does, because Sanctification is so strong as a heroic, and then pairing that with the Tychus as well, giving him a failsafe, the amount of DPS he's going to be able to put onto his team, always not worried about getting picked off. I do love this rotation coming out from Ballistix, and again, with all the warriors being removed, Dahaka as a solo tank is not typically something that you see, and if you do, you aren't happy that you got put in that position.
Definitely not. That is a tough place to be. We see the Leoric coming out. That is very interesting. Another hero that, you know, kind of off meta, come back a little bit more lately as more and more double tank comes around. And you know what I see when I look at both of those tanks? They get so much value out of Malfurion's style of healing.
Yes.
Because they both excel at long, drawn-out fights. You know, they have their own regenerations. You combine that with Malfurion, and it's so hard to take those down. But Tychus shreds those, and I don't know if Miracle has the damage that they need right now to deal with this.
I can't help as you talking on the point of Tychus right now. The threat that he puts on to Dahaka in this game is going to be insane, and Leoric is again a hero that's going to struggle at that point in time. And with having the double front line, I expect to see a self-sustaining within the rhythm form of Tychus, and then having the Tyrael when things get ugly to back them up, and they end up moving into the hammer here for Miracle. With Ballistix already having the, oh man, that is an interesting choice coming out from them. I see the Leoric just because the Murden, or excuse me, because the isolation that happened to the tanks. But that Sergeant Hammer to sit back when I'm already questioning if the Tychus is going to be ripping through the front line, and then you're going to rely on the Hammer to be able to sit back there. I can't help like feel that Tychus's pressure is going to be too much for that Hammer to succeed.
Yeah, and not only that, but Tychus isn't alone. They picked Li Ming, so there's so much damage on the side of Ballistix. They're going to be doing so much work on that front line, and if you're talking about two heroes that can actually threaten Leoric Dahaka, I mean, Tychus is definitely the best one, and then Li Ming is not too shabby herself, so I think it's just really scary for that team. And Hammer, she has some good things, she has some upsides, but I'm afraid that Miracle won't have control of the map enough to get the Hammer value they need.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in that sense. I'm just trying to figure out when we see the laning matchups on the solo top, which we typically see on Dragonshire, and then the 4-man rotations between the two. Dahaka is going to be the representative for MVP Miracle at the very top, and it's just going to be this 1-4 is something I'm really curious to see, because Hammer can run in a 1-1-3 and just destroy a lane. But as I say that, we're about to get into game number 1 here at the Gold Club World Championship between Ballistix and MVP Miracle. Alrighty, here we go. On the left-hand side, we have MVP Miracle. Darvish is going to be playing the Malfurion. Reset will be onto the Dahaka. Crazy moving on Sergeant Hammer. Sniper is going to be playing Falstad, and Leoric will be played by Tist.
All right, guys, and on the red side, for Ballistix, the BlizzCon champions. We have SCSC playing Tychus Zhongha, playing Tyrael, Noblesse playing Muradin, Nacho, Jin on Li Ming, and Swoy rounding it out on Brightwing.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting composition, and Zhongha onto the Tyrael I think is going to have a large amount of influence. And do you feel a little bit of warmth on the inside that Zhongha is actually on the Cloud9 mount right now?
I mean, it tickles a little part of me deep down, Dred. I'm just always happy to see that.
Feels good, man. Feels good. But as we were talking about the interesting four-man, or the 1-4 between these teams, and the Hammer, already Dahaka has actually moved to the bottom, and Hammer is posting up there with the Malfurion. They've chosen that to be the lane that they're going to apply this ridiculous amount of pressure that the siege up of Hammer can provide.
I really like that positioning to start Dahaka on the bottom side to make sure you have security around the Hammer and then rotate up before losing the experience. It's just the little things like that that can mean a world of difference when you're talking about this early game.
Yeah, and a really good harass there coming out from Sniper onto Nachogen. A little bit of a victory there as he was able to dodge it. And again, it comes down to the wave clear and control that we see here. Crazy movement on the bottom half with the Hammer is not winning that lane anymore because the rotations we see from the rest of MVP Miracle here, and the top lane is just going to be pretty much a stalemate for the time being until Dahaka slowly can outpush.
Yeah, that's one of the... Ooh, we have a little fight going on here. Noblesse is stunning Tis, and look at that damage from Tychus just shredding Leoric. It's not enough to get a kill, but you can see how scary it is, even for a tank, to walk into these brushes. It is just a lot of damage, and that's without Li Ming.
Yeah, and that's not even questioning the scaling that he's going to be getting at his level 4. No matter what route he goes, he suddenly becomes even more of a tank killer if that is going to be possible here. Experience is going to be relatively even between these two teams. Stun onto the Leoric, and that's the pressure. That is exactly what we're talking about. The frontline pressure Tychus has against this composition. Hammer, you always need someone in front of you. You always are going to be thriving when you have the warriors to be able to protect you, but I can't help but feel like the dive potential with the Tyrael, the pressure that Tychus is going to provide to the front line, that Ballistix has just a very well-rounded composition here, and even at level 3 into this game, they seem to be showing the strengths of their comp.
Absolutely, and I have to say, Noblesse is doing a really good job controlling movement around this very dangerous center point in Dragonshire.
Wow.
We mentioned that normally Muradin struggles in the early game, but his expert control over the rotation to the bottom side of the map actually allowed Ballistix to get a 2-minute and 10-second Dragon Knight.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to MVP Miracle opted in with the Sergeant Hammer. They single-handedly decided that they're going with a 1-1-3 to win a lane by itself, but Ballistix made a very solid rotation and decision-making to not fully commit to the 1-4 and have two people remain there, so Hammer is not just wailing away at everything. Their wave player allowed him to win in the rotations, and very early was able to get a DK. Granted, because the Dragon Knight skills with the minutes, it's not really necessarily the strongest of DK, only a free front wall of experience here, Dunk.
They're not going to be complaining, though. Anytime you get that, even if you just get a wall, I feel like it's a mentality thing, too. Especially against a team like Miracle, who, yeah, they're an amazing team. MVP Black practice with them all the time. But maybe they're struggling on this global stage. Maybe they're a little nervous. So if you can do anything to get ahead, sometimes that's enough. They talked about how they were a momentum-based team, and I'm a little concerned seeing them give up a Dragon Knight, even if it's not an enormous experience problem.
Yeah, the thought process of already losing onto the map objective is something that we do have to consider here. Posturing in the mid lane with Dahaka on the rotation, the Sergeant Hammer strategy here on the bottom half of the map is both the teams end up backing out, getting the Giants, and applying pressure onto the map. The next Shrine phase, if it is timed with the Night Camp, I think it's going to be a very big deal for either team. As I say that, in the mid lane, Leoric with the stun combo here and SCSC on that Tychus providing so much threat.
That is a nice rotation by Ballistix to get that pick off. But what I want to see here is Miracle taking this Night Camp and then actually pressuring, maybe even with the Dahaka rotation, because I think that's something they need to utilize before these shrines come up. They have time where making Dahaka leave won't cost them anything. There's no Dragon Knight to potentially threaten. So if they can maybe do something that Ballistix isn't expecting, they can get back in control of this game.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I can't help but even push that idea farther, or that concept a little bit farther, just because Dahaka should win in the wave clear department on the upper half of the map, which should allow him to get a little bit of free reign. Harassment, though, going out to SCSC. Noblesse is trying to get the flank. Mines do scout him. How? Keep in mind, this is a 5 versus 5 rotation down here. Darvish, Polymorph, he ends up going down here. The first kill and reset is going to be available for Ballistix. Can they get more? A lot of DPS on the Sniper, and he is going to be fried chicken here as he ends up going down. A 2-for-0 trade so far in Ballistix' favor.
And everyone on Miracle has to run away. Noblesse knows this, jumps in, but won't find anything else, just being scary. And that wraparound by Noblesse was so clean to get the stun on Malfurion, and the faith on the follow-up. The leaning combo hit immediately when the stun landed, so that's just the level of communication and faith that this team has, and it's why they are such a powerhouse.
Yeah, it was very well done from these teams, and Dahaka not getting any kind of like global pressure and value there is something that I can't help criticize on the rotations here already from Miracle. Nacho Jin is going to be able to confirm this Dragonite, and we can't help but keep note of the experience advantage here for Ballistix. Not only is it going to be that 3/4 level advantage with the Dragonite pushing, but if they hit that 10 spike, we could see them opening up the map here. And when that happens on Dragonshire specifically, it's a little bit more of a setback than some of the others because the vision control you get in those shrine lanes, that's the prioritization onto bottom and onto top. And as I say that, the flank here...
Talking about top, look who's in trouble.
My goodness.
You know, Miracle has the globals, and somehow they're still getting out-rotated and still getting ganked all around the map. It just seems like Ballistix is on the next page. They're always doing something right on time. You know, Dahaka had to go a little too far forward for that wave, and they were there to punish immediately, and they hid that rotation under the pressure of the Dragon Knight. I think that's just such a clean decision to make, and I really like the way they did that.
Yeah, I love any of those like just subtle rotations to be able to confirm and maximize an advantage that your team has, and we see that again from Ballistix. They do have the 10 spike over their opponents here, and they're going to be looking to try and confirm this fort. But Dahaka is desperately trying to soak the experience through the upper lane to get the 10. If he does get it, will we see a decision to get a flank here? The tunnel could happen. There's the 10 spike. And Ballistix very calculated, backing out the exact moment that they had any opportunity to get that flank.
Yeah, Ballistix knew that Dahaka was going to be looking to rotate down. You already see the Brightwing in that lane to soak the wave, so not too much experience missed for Ballistix, but they would have hoped maybe to get a little more out of their 10 spikes. Speaking of that, you see Noblesse playing ultra aggressive here, not afraid at all on that Muradin, and that's the kind of Muradin play that we were concerned about going away when the Unstoppable was removed from his jump, but you still see just how aggressive these Muradins can be, and that map control, the vision, just being scary. If the Muradin shows up on that Sea Giant camp, you have to be a little concerned. Is his team behind him? I don't know. And it's just, when Miracle has to play around all of that pressure, it's so difficult.
Yeah, I think that, but because you never know, right? Like, are they on the camp? Are they all invading? Yeah. And in every situation, you could be getting the camp, but until you capture it, you aren't giving that information to your opponents here. Sniper throwing out the Q is not going to be able to land down to the opponents. And I'm trying to find a win condition here for Miracle when it comes to their comp. And the only one I can really find is if there's a extreme moment of desperation on the side of Ballistix to dive onto Hammer, and they're just being this Twilight Dream kind of synergy and the zoning coming out from Dahaka, but I can't help but feel like, again, Tychus's pressure onto the front line means that MVP Miracle is the one who needs to be diving onto them, and then you have the sanctification behind it to just say, you know, take a minute here, we're going to be able to still continue through this fight. It just feels like Ballistix composition and draft, and as we see play, as Sniper almost gets picked off here, is just a step above Miracle.
Absolutely. I think you're totally right. I don't think Miracle can take a regular fight. They have to abuse their globals. My impression, looking at the way these teams have matched up so far, Tychus and Li Ming are just controlling way too much space and destroying these front lines. So Miracle needs to utilize the fact that they're one global above their opponents to win this game.
Yeah, and Zhang Ha going in with the Brightwing there. Dragonite is picked up by Nacho Jin into the mid lane. The third Dragonite here for Ballistix. They do have a level advantage and 13 talent tier advantage. Opening up the map again is such a good choice here. If they can manage to get that bottom fort and middle fort, but there's a pretty solid rotation on the side of Miracle. Nacho Jin is not going to be able to get this because the rotation from everybody on Ballistix is so slow because of that top skirmish with the Haka.
That looked a little bit awkward, I have to be honest. It seemed like Nacho Jin expected his team to be backing him up immediately, but they did not
there's
rotate.
No Tyrael.
SC got caught by that Entomb.
He gets caught by the Entomb, ends up going down as well. Very good engage there. The fact that Tyrael is not there, they tried to abuse that. They don't look like they're done quite yet. Wanting a bit more, I don't think they're going to be able to get it. Nacho Jin gets the disengage here. So a really good pick up there for MVP Miracle. Not necessarily a colossal momentum swing going back into their favor here. And Falstad moving into the fact that he has opted towards that auto attack build. I can't help but appreciate the fact that his scaling might be able to provide enough threat onto Muradin to make something happen, but I don't know if this is going to be as good as the Tychus. Again, Tychus is just so powerful here.
Yeah, it's just so hard to beat a Tychus in the straight up team fight.
Yeah.
So difficult, especially with that Muradin having such a huge health pool, and you don't have the advantage Tychus does in taking down high health pool targets. Now, Miracle is doing a good job here of utilizing Hammer on their pushes, and I have to say Miracle has done a much better job of recovering the tempo of this game, looking into the mid game, than I expected. When Ballistix had that experienced lead, they haven't made more of a lead.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we talk about. When you're ahead, you want to maximize what you can get out of every little thing, and Ballistix just has not furthered themselves ahead of Miracle. Miracle's actually caught up a little bit, and that's what we're looking for. But with those two forts both so low and so vulnerable, if Ballistix gets a tiny window, they can catapult ahead, get 16 spike.
I agree, but I can't help. I agree 100% that they could hit that spike, but I feel like they should have already done it, right? As you brought it up, that it seems a little bit sloppy, and I feel like the health bars that we do see on that mid and bottom fort are already telling of kind of like the thought process between the two, the lack of the coordination and the rotation. I feel like at bare minimum, one of those should already be confirmed for this team. But as we say that the Dragonite Dragonite phase is going to be spawning here in 15 seconds. A 1-4 split for both these teams. Keep in mind, Dahaka's global is something we have to consider. And 16 talents here won't be available yet. I want to know if Ballistix is worried more about just stalling till that 16 mark. But without that global, it looks like they decide not. Already Tyrael is making that rotation down, Dunk.
Yeah, 5 members down here for Ballistix, and you can see Noblesse wants to force this fight. Zhongha's in the backline trying to slow everyone down. There is a gust to disengage, but look at the damage on Tis on that Lyric Tychus, just shredding him.
Whoa!
Now, Sniper so low to that Li Ming orb, and now Reset is in danger. Here comes the Sanctification that will protect Ballistix, and a nice snipe out by the grenade, and that is just going to start the snowball in this team fight for Ballistix.
Yeah, reset after reset here. We do see Tis is going to be able to withdraw. 16 power spike is now up here for Ballistix. They didn't manage to capture the top shrine because they made that aggressive rotation, so they will lose a couple of seconds here when it comes to advantage and man advantage over that Dragonite phase that they're going to have into their hands. But right now, again, Ballistix, minus that one pick onto the Tychus in the isolation, seems to have full control of this game, that they know what they're going to be doing. It's pretty calculated play across the board. But when we were criticizing maybe not getting as much as they could have, Ballistix at certain points in this game, I want to see them make that adjustment now, because this is a very big spike. And again, they do have this nice moment to really make a game that's like a level lead to suddenly, how do you come back from this on the side of Miracle?
Absolutely, and that's the thing on Dragonshire too. You can spend a lot of time in this 16-19 area where it's almost even for Miracle. So Ballistix really does want to open up the map and get a killing level advantage. Like, you want so much of an advantage, they can't come back. Then you have a huge time window. And getting that keep wall is good, but they're looking for more. They need to get more. And I don't know if just this bottom keep wall is enough.
I think the double keep wall puts them in a position that's comfortable across the board. I mean, in an ideal world, you always like, if I can't get a keep, I should. But again, it's a 12-minute point in the game. We have to keep in mind, this is the 4th phase of Dragonites that we've seen into this match. But the first one started at 2:30. That is not something you typically see on Dragonshire. And as Dragonshire meta evolves, it seems like we see less and less Dragonites. So I feel like mentally we expect it to be more impactful. SCSC, though, getting Entombed. Twilight Dream hitting everyone. That is already going to be one down here. Miracle is going deeper. Nice Wraithwalk here from Leoric. Can he get the slow onto the team? He ends up hitting 2. The disengage between the two, a nice channel onto Noblesse, reasonable amount of damage. The drag coming out, isolating Polymorph from Swoy to try and peel off his team. Ballistix right now, their health bar slowly dropping, but it doesn't look like Miracle's going to be able to get anything else. Their engage is all in Gust or Entomb, and when those were burnt very early on, they just can't get anything else of those situations. But huge shout out to Darvish on that Twilight Dream. He was the reason there was no saving moments from either Brightwing or Tyrael in that team fight.
Absolutely, very well done. And SCSC has got to respect those Entombs. He's been picked out twice now by that. So he absolutely needs to change his style here. And Miracle wants to make something happen. They know they have the 5v4, but they're not willing to press into this choke. And that's one of the difficulties of playing Sergeant Hammer, I feel like. It's so hard on that chase. You only have that time window of the boosters to get damage on, and then you kind of have a slow AD carry. Doesn't contribute anything to actually catching your opponents.
Yeah, and it only really can you get to positioning that is beneficial for you when you end up getting that advantage and start sieging, forcing your advantage in some way, shape, or form, which obviously Miracle is at the point where they don't quite have that. But the fact that that was a 4 versus 5 and they still weren't able to go in and try and steal that, and Miracle having the upper hand, and they weren't willing to risk that for a Giant Camp, I think shows that their composition, yes, they can have moments of success when they are able to get the Entomb pick onto a single target, but they don't have enough to really game-changing momentum swings here for the comp, whereas when I look at Ballistix with that Li Ming getting a reset, right, the Tychus and the pressure he's going to be putting out, again, it just feels like Miracle's draft has put them to where if they got a lead, I can see them never letting go, but they have a much more difficult draft on making that comeback.
Absolutely. Miracle's composition to me looks like once they're ahead, they're like the grindstone. They're just going to wear you down bit by bit. Your structures are going to erode. But Ballistix has the explosive power to get pickoffs anywhere on the map with that Muradin Tychus Li-Ming combo. It's just so much damage. Even Leoric isn't safe. And you look at this, you think, okay, we need someone to soak this lane. Who's safe? Leoric. Well, not when there's that much damage. He can't even afford to Wraithwalk. He takes so much damage in the time he's Wraithwalking that he actually dies. I mean, that's the level of damage coming out from Ballistix, and it's making it so hard for Miracle to find the timing windows to use their globals.
Yeah, and even worst case here is the fact that Ballistix is now very close to their 20 advantage. Everybody is moving up to the top lane. They do have a fourth to withdraw as Young Hawk laying down the smite, getting the mobility, not going to use his Holy Ground, try and get the isolation. If they capture this top shrine, this is both shrines in the hands of Ballistix. If they, I can't help but feel like I wanted Miracle to force that fight with the spawning Leoric, because now it's a 20 advantage. It's almost 100% going to be a Dragonite. The pick on the bottom map, half of the map, with the fly onto Falset. Will Nacho Jin go down? Storm Shield and the teleport out is going to keep him alive. Dwarf Toss in. Noblesse misses the Storm Bolt. Keep in mind, Zhonghan and Leoric are not here quite yet into this fight. Gus to get the disengage. But right now, again, Ballistix has everything going into their favor, and even better, the fact that Isolation was burnt and not able to confirm a kill here.
Absolutely, that's amazing for Ballistix. The Gust is also down, so when Ballistix secures this Dragonite, there are not any disengage tools on the side of Miracle to actually control this momentum. And I could see Ballistix, if they get even one pick here, suddenly Core is an option.
Yeah, and that's, again, it gets even better with the fact that you have Laser, which is pretty good when it comes to killing the Core, but beyond anything is the fact that you have Sanctification. All right, you just legitimately begin to ignore everybody if they end up getting onto you. The Burrow onto Dahaka, the Root and Cleanse to be able to try and peel off him. Holy Ground is going to be able to zone him. The Polymorph, he ends up going down. Twilight Dream is burnt as well. As you said, one pick might be all it takes. Will Ballistix end up going in, trying to pull the trigger with Sanctification still available? Entomb onto the Dragonite. Good Stormbolt. Saints burnt very early here, but getting that kill is all it's going to take. I think Ballistix has it here.
Gust is back in 1 second. Gust is back in 1 second, but there's just not enough damage.
Oh,
that Gust does not accomplish anything, unfortunately, and I think Miracle knows that it's over at this point. Mouth and Leoric, try as they might, do not have the damage to kill these targets, and that is going to be Ballistix taking game 1 here against MVP Miracle after they fool around and kill a couple extra heroes, Drag.
Yeah,
gotta pad the stats.
You gotta pad the stats, you know. Very convincing win here, and I feel like it started before the game even started. The draft, I think, was a very bad position to be in for Miracle. Not so much that their draft wasn't well thought out, I think. More than anything, I think that they were a bit just bullied in a lot of the rotations that they made, specifically when it came to the Warrior prioritization, picking the Dahaka that high over a Johanna or an ETC, so then they proceed to ban Johanna. Then they banned the ETC out of fear of the double Warrior. Jungha picking up the Tyrael at that point in time, you just go, what are you going to do? And suddenly you have the two heroes you don't in your front line when you know your opponent has a Tychus.
Yeah, and it's a little difficult too, because you could tell they had kind of the right idea going into the draft. Oh, let's value globals ultra highly. This is how you win Dragon Shire Sky. We're going to play the map. But then they just ended up with a team comp that couldn't play the team fight.
Yeah.
So even though they had the tools to maybe play the map, maybe they could have made that happen, they didn't have the tools to actually get to the position where they could do that. And not only is that a draft lane, but that's Ballistix strength. I mean, they controlled vision and tempo in the early game. They had every rotation on lockdown, and that is why they're so amazing. And the MVP here is Nacho Jin on that Li-Ming with those huge kills.
Yeah, reset after reset was enough to just snowball the advantage here. I well deserved here for Nacho Jin into this game. I hope in this next game, I hope we do see some, take a minute, take a breath, and Miracle kind of come back with a different approach to the draft, because I really do feel that rotation from them was, I think that was a large reason we saw that momentum swing against them, and the Tychus pick, it's just so well done. I can't help but, like, a lot of people put focus on MVP Black when they were in their most dominant phase, going almost undefeated through like 3 international tournaments in a row. That draft was their strong point in a lot of ways, and I can't help but I feel like I see that, the same trends where you're like, how did you end up getting this draft versus this draft a lot of the times from Ballistix so far? Granted, we have a much smaller sample size, but it's scary. Every time I watch them draft sometimes, like, it's usually the Tyrael rotations where I'm just go, all right, how do they lose this game?
It seems somehow Tyrael gets forgotten about.
Yeah.
I go into so many drafts and look at them, and it feels like the team playing against Ballistix forgot Tyrael even existed,
Yeah.
and then suddenly they pick Tyrael and they're like, wait a sec, Tyrael's really good here. That's not okay that they have that hero. So that's something that I think every team needs to keep in mind throughout the whole round robin stage of the eliminations. You need to keep an eye on not only what's good in the meta, not only what's really popular, but what team-specific heroes are something. And Tyrael is so good, he shouldn't be a team-specific hero, but I feel like a lot of teams don't appreciate him enough.
I agree.
And that makes it easy for Ballistix to kind of swoop in under the radar with the Tyrael, because not that many teams are practicing him, so you forget about it in the draft phase.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, a rough summary of what we saw during that last game, the kills being 11-3 here. The structures, I mean, the experience is probably the difference we saw of 21-19 is the least telling when you look at how many structures Ballistix managed to have available to them. And in Dragonshire, you need that map to clear out for vision control across the board. It's just very dominant performance everywhere for Ballistix.
Absolutely. They didn't lose a single fort. And, you know, that's why they were able to keep control of the whole game, like you said.
Yeah.
The vision and Ballistix on Dragonshire securing that win like we expected, I have to say. BlizzCon champions, best map, that is what we were looking for. Ballistix to come out strong in this tournament, open the tournament off with the victory that we knew they could get.
Yeah, I love the fact that we saw them in such dominant, like, form there, right? Granted, it should be noted this is against MVP Miracle, a team that they have seen more than enough times, ones that they've probably practiced against for a long period of time. And even though Miracle is great, I mean, as Wolf said in their intro video, being that this is the team that why everybody wants 3 Korean teams, they are a phenomenal team and performer, but Ballistix won Super League for a reason, right? Like, they are very comfortable within their own region, so the fact that they were so dominant, it's only against people that they're very comfortable with still, right? I've seen them go against some of the Chinese teams. I think things might shake up a little bit more, or maybe how MVP Black specifically, maybe if they made positive adjustments since we saw their performances at BlizzCon. But it is nice to see that coming from a world champion so quickly, that it is full control against people that you should expect them to have that control on.
Absolutely, yeah. They did not look shaky. Despite, you know, a couple pickoffs, it happens. And Tomb is a good ability. We all know that. It's scary to play
Turns
against
out your heroic's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, who knew?
So, I mean, really cleanly played, I have to say, overall. You know, the second Dragon Knight phase, we were questioning that a little bit, but overall, control of the map was just so well executed.
Yeah.
Ballistix, if they stay on form, they're looking good for this tournament. I mean, I know one game is a small sample size, but after winning BlizzCon, looking good here, I want to see more of that. And MVP Black against Ballistix is going to be amazing. Yeah. But Miracle, you have to want to take a game off Ballistix, right? Like, you want
well, because every game matters too, right?
Yeah.
Like, with the new format in this tournament specifically, it's not like if they end up losing the next game, in theory, like in what you were used to in the best of threes, you're like, well, I lost that and I just lost the series. But every game here matters. No matter what team you're playing against, the fact that you gain that 1 point if they manage to win the next game versus getting 0 could be the difference from getting the winner's bracket in the knockout round, right, versus not. Because if you're Miracle, you can't be walking in here and you go, all right, well, I've got the 2 Korean teams that have qualified and done everything a little bit better than me for the past, and then you suddenly go to like China and we have 3 Chinese teams, which is typically Koreans respect the Chinese teams more than any other part of the world, so you can't be looking at them going, oh, this is an easy tournament, we've got the winner side. This one game matters just as much as the last one and the last game that they'll have in this tournament. It's very crucial for them to be able to take a mini, step back, and then reapproach the draft.
Absolutely, and this might be their toughest match of the round robin.
Yeah.
And that's something where when you're a team who doesn't have that much global experience, coming in, opening the tournament, all this hype on you, and you have to go against the BlizzCon champs for round 1, that's scary, and I wonder if that's affecting them here, because that sort of morale issue, you know, they haven't had time to build momentum. They haven't fed off some teams that maybe they can beat or feel more comfortable with. So Miracle has to find a way to not get discouraged by this loss against Ballistix, because they need everything they can possibly do to beat them, since Ballistix is so strong.
Yeah, and when we see this as we said before, this is the first international tournament for Miracle. I think this is really where, I mean, as they put it, a pivotal moment, but not only that, I feel like they have to find who they are as a team. A lot of the times when you do get to that international stage, you quickly find, like, who are we, what do we value in terms of our performance in order to drive ourselves to become a better team. And you can get it a little bit at regionals, but it isn't until finally when you realize you can't pick apart like the comfortability of playing against a team that you know really, really well. You're like, well, I know that you have to just take, I only have 20 games to see of this team, and I have to predict what I think their biggest strengths and weaknesses are and how I'm going to exploit them, and how do we improve to be better than that. And right now, I hope that their mentality is going to be still strong, because this is a long tournament, and there's still a lot of hope for them.
There is definitely still hope for them. There are so many matches yet to go. And Miracle, what do they need to improve looking into game 2? I mean,
beyond draft?
Beyond draft, of course. So maybe not so much Sergeant Hammer picks. What else can they look at?
I don't think the Hammer was the worst position that they were put into. It was mainly the Warrior choke into the Tyrael deny is when, and then Tychus, you're like, oh, okay, that's going to be getting rough. I think my next go-to would just be rotations. The rotations were a bit sloppy. Yeah, so. But we are about to get into game number 2. But first, we're going to see what Ballistix themselves, the dominant team, did in prep for this tournament.
Ballistix is the best team in the world. I think the most important thing for Ballistix to focus on now is not letting the pressure and the expectations of the world get to them.
아무래도 큰 대회에서 우승하다 보니까 좀 기분이 많이 좋아졌다가 이제 많이 풀어졌어요. 그래서 이제부터 다시 연습을 많이 해야 될 것 같아요.
일단 블리즈컨은 우승해서 엄청 좋고 그 기세를 몰아서 온 대회이기 때문에 이번 대회도 꼭 좋은 성적 내고 싶어요.
오히려 경기를 연달아서 하는 게 긴장감이 안 풀어지고 그대로 폼이 유지될 수 있다고 생각을 해서 더 좋은 것 같아요.
恭喜一下
Ballistix
3比1.
개인적인 생각으로 중국이랑 한국이 제일 잘한다고 생각해요. 근데 중국이랑 한국 팀이 좀 제일 많은 세계 대회라고 생각해요, 이번이. 그래서 좀 많이 걱정은 돼요.
MVP 블랙팀은 좀 당연하게 위협적인 거고 중국에서 이스타 팀이 블랙과 맞먹을 정도로 저희 위협하다고 생각합니다.
MVP 블랙이랑 이스타가 좀 많이 걱정되는 팀이에요.
이스타, 제로, MVP랑 미라클이요.
And so Ballistix needs to just make sure they stick to what they know, not let all the hype and all the pressure get to them, and show that they are still the world champions.
Have shown signs of being the best already in this tournament, as you know, it's kind of awkward watching me in my own in that little bit of a clip there, but yeah, they are just absolutely full control of the last game, and expect them to do so again moving forward. But what I did note the most out of that was the amount of respect to E-Star being the third representative here for the Chinese teams, that the fact that it isn't what we saw with the rosters, that weird hybrid that we ended up with at BlizzCon. So moving in through this tournament, that is a team now after that I am very much looking out for. But Infernal Shrines is going to be the map here. Dunk, MVP Miracle ended up choosing it, so Ballistix is going to be the first ban. What do you expect? What are you looking out for?
There's a hero who happens to be named Kerrigan.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard that she's pretty good on this map. But Illidan actually banned out by Ballistix here in that first ban slot. The question is, will this melee assassin ban prompt Miracle to now ban Kerrigan?
Yeah, another thing too when it comes to this map is wave clear is something a lot of people consider, and because of that, Vala gains a reasonably high priority, and then because of that, on top of it, we do see Ariel is something a lot of people have to be looking out for, not only because of the synergies, but Ariel complements the Shrine phase on this map so heavily with her knockback, a reasonable amount of clear on her own, and just that having no mana is a very valuable thing, and I think that Rhaegar actually might be in sight of exactly that. That if Ballistix doesn't end up going with that first pick, if they can get the rotation of a Vala and an Ariel for a Miracle, it's a really pretty spot. Or maybe, again, it could be the Globals, because again, the impact Fnatic has seemed to have so far is just insane, and Shrines is no exception to being beneficial with Globals, maybe not as much as Dragonshire. I personally enjoy the wave clear a little bit more, but it's still a really great tool.
Absolutely, and we do see Kerrigan first picked by Ballistix. This is not a huge surprise. The question is, how will Miracle respond? You mentioned the potential Vala Ariel, and I think that is amazing here if Miracle chooses to do it, because we know Ariel is so good at that counter engage, just stopping all of the Kerrigan momentum, and the fact they already banned out Rhaegar hints to me that they had that in their sights.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do expect that there be the rotation here coming up from Miracle, but maybe they have something on their own. There's going to be the Vala, and now that there's Vala, I can't not see this being Ariel. I feel like it's got to be 100% at this point in time. If not, I expect Ballistix to be the one maybe either picking it up, and if not, it's going to be a ban coming up from them in the second ban phase here. And they don't. They go with the Tassadar pick up here. And it could be the Tassadar. He provides an awesome amount of wave clear when it comes to the Shrine control himself. It removes the survivability, and like we often see like a Kerrigan Tassadar Brightwing shield-oriented, just try and deal with our Kerrigan in any way, shape, or form. So maybe they're worried about getting that deny a bit more, but Murden is going to be the pick up here for Ballistix. And where else do you think they're going with this next slot?
Well, their composition right now has a ton of stuns and threaten, and Tyrael. Again, Ballistix not even giving Miracle the opportunity to second ban phase. They don't care what support they get or what backline they get. They know all they need is this Murden Tyrael Kerrigan composition to be able to control the game. It is so hard to step up and contest any position against that sort of front line with so much threat and survivability. So I really like that rotation from Ballistix. Now, Miracle responds with an ETC ban. Are they really expecting Ballistix to go for a triple warrior? I feel like that bans themselves out of a hero.
Maybe, and then even then, Ballistix, rather than getting rid of what I consider to be like the Ariel fear in some at some point, they instead they don't even care. MVP didn't even look at Ariel, which, you know, I mean, just maybe call me crazy. I guess the appreciation towards the counter engage and synergy that they may have there on the composition, and instead go with Malfurion Sonya. Sonya, no surprise, pairing with the Task. I mean, since Infernal Shrine's release, we have always seen this duo that is Tassadar Sonya, the power, control, survivability that they do have. But I can't help but feel like I don't look at Miracle outside of maybe a perfect Twilight Dream. I, again, don't look at their comp and go, you have what it takes to deal with Tyrael. I feel like Ballistix is legitimately going to be the team that makes Tyrael just the world appreciated the way that you were alluding to, like the lack of appreciation a lot of teams do, because they're picking it here before the second ban phase very comfortably. And again, I look at Miracle and I don't go, well, you had the response to be able to deal with that. He's just so influential here.
Absolutely. And we mentioned the counter engage of Ariel, which Miracle didn't go for. Malfurion, no slouch in the counter engage department, but I feel like Miracle has really good control of the Shrine phase. In theory, you can get Sonya and Arthas to stand on that. You have a ton of wave clear with Task Vala, but just the Kerrigan factor, I don't think it's enough. There's too many targets I'm scared. Like, I don't like having Vala and Malfurion, who you have to be scared for on the side of Miracle. And even in the early game, Arthas and Sonya do not survive Kerrigan combos with follow-up. That's something where Miracle's composition really excels the later the game goes. When Sonya has Relentless, when Arthas gets ultra tanky, then they can survive Kerrigan combos into Murden stuns. But in the early game, you know, before level 10, how is Sonya going to survive that?
I agree with you. I think that they're banking heavily on the fact that Tassadar, with the anti-burst potential that he might be able to bring to those team fights, I feel the exact same feeling in my gut that I felt in the first draft, right? The minute I saw the Tyrael lock in, the next rotation and steps that we see on the side of Miracle, I don't look at those and go, that was a proper response. And as we talked about with the ban onto the ETC, which was the same pattern we saw, the Johanna and ETC removal for both of the teams into the second ban phase here. Maybe they're onto something that I just don't understand yet. I feel like that could be the case here. Or maybe an interweaving of just team-on-team meta. The fact that these guys know each other very well could be another thing that comes into play when it comes to this draft. But overall, I do feel that saddening feeling that the minute I saw the Tyrael and everything past that point, that I just go look at Miracle and go, what's your answer, right?
Yeah.
And to be fair, that doesn't mean the game is like over by any means. Like, there's still a bunch of outplayed potential. You could snowball and it doesn't matter. But if both teams are playing perfectly, I can't help but feel like I appreciate everything that Ballistix has right now.
It feels like Ballistix has so many tools throughout the whole game. In the early game, they have Kerrigan, Murd, and stun combos. When it gets to the late game, they have Sanctification to protect themselves from the bruisers. But I feel like I look at Miracle's draft, and they're good all-arounders. They're good, like, general value heroes, but I just don't feel like they have, like, the really powerful tools, like a really powerful go button, like the sort of thing that lets you take control of a game and basically tell your opponent how they have to play.
Yeah.
And that's something that Ballistix is going to be able to do with the Kerrigan and with the Muradin.
Yeah, but I mean, we're going to have to see how that ends up playing out here as we're about to get into game number 2 here between MVP Miracle and Ballistix on Inferno Shrines. All right, here we go. On the left-hand side, MVP Miracle already down 1 game. Darvish is going to be on Malfurion. Sonya will be played by Reset. Crazy moving on the Lufala. Sniper is going to be on Tassadar, and Tist onto the Arthas.
And then on the red side, yet again, we have Ballistix ready to go, running towards that middle lane. SCSC on Tyrael, Zhonghua on Kerrigan, Noblesse playing Muradin, Nacho Jin on Li Ming, Swoi on that Karazim.
I can't help but note already out the gates the fact that we do see the Kerrigan pickup here, and that Zhonghua is onto the Kerrigan. I am a little bit less confident in SCSC's Tyrael. In the past, when we do see this triple heavy melee style, he doesn't feel nearly as comfortable on that hero as some of the other members, specifically Zhonghua for Ballistix here. But really good anchoring there on the side of Noblesse to be able to stop from the zone in the 1-4. The top lane is going to be, Tyrael doesn't ever really lose a lane. He just gets out-pushed a majority of the time if he's going to lose in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely, and something we haven't talked about at all yet is the Karazim tweaks that have come in lately.
Yeah,
he now has a lot of different talents. At level 4, he'll have some allies he can jump to that provide some different effects. So I want to keep a close eye on Karazim's build throughout this game and really try to evaluate how these new talents perform. Because to be honest, coming into this event, I was not sold on the viability of Karazim post-changes. So I really want to keep an eye on Swoi and how he uses the new abilities specifically to maximum effectiveness.
Do you just take 7-sided and just follow up to the Kerrigan combo? You have the Sanctification is pretty much a palm in itself, right? And just go to the 7-sided because you were talking about the squishiness of the front line, but hold on a second. Nacho Jin in a rough spot, Reset, getting a decent amount of poke out there. He's going to be okay, and the teams will go back to their sides of the map. But the survivability of both the Arthas and the Sonya, as 7-sided strike could punish that even more. Zhonghua, it is going to be caught out here. Gets the 3-man combo. The shield's not going to be able to keep him up, though. Swoi now ends up getting the dash out here, and MVP Miracle, as we talked about the early game aggression that Ballistix has, one missed position, and Miracle was there to punish.
Yeah, and look at how deep Miracle was on Ballistix side of the map for that kill. They knew Li Ming had to back, so they weren't under threat, so they walked all the way into Ballistix side of the map, and you could tell they were not prepared for that. Kerrigan was in a very risky position and actually got punished. So well done by Miracle, reading the situation there, understanding Li Ming had to get sent back, and how to punish Ballistix for that.
Yeah, and I can't help but take a minute to appreciate that Zhonghua onto Kerrigan now is going to be in a bad spot. The fact that he doesn't have Shrine Control advantage is usually when Kerrigan becomes the most scary because it forces your opponent to overextend. But with the 31 advantage here and the Sonya Tassadar, this is going to be a free pickup here. A well-timed pick led into the first map objective here, the exact opposite of what we saw in game number 1 here between these two teams. And Punisher now coming through in the mid lane here for Miracle.
And that is what Miracle needs.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, when you get 1 kill, it doesn't do that much. You don't get that ahead, it's what you do with it. And we see Miracle played that perfectly, they timed it perfectly, they got this Punisher, and this is going to get them the lead. And something to note about this style of composition, Task Malfurion, 2 tanky frontline, when they get ahead, they become an unstoppable bulldozer of just raw stats. So it's so difficult to crack Miracle's composition if they're in the lead and constantly pressuring you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just terrifying to be able to deal with. And Arthas is a hero we don't see very often competitively. He does have his moments where he'll kind of pop up and hopefully show signs of success, but I do think that a lot of people underestimate, number one, his early game kill potential and just raw kill potential throughout the game. And if he does survive, he is so, like, once Sanctification goes down, after that point, if they have not managed to get the upper hand in a fight, Arthas will 100% ensure the fact that they get everything they possibly can of it. Unlike we saw with like the hammer composition out of Miracle, right? It's the exact opposite. He will get all of those momentum-changing situations for his team and be able to get a full wipe to possibly open and get lethal.
Yeah, absolutely. Arthas, just an absolutely remorseless hero. When he gets that lead and gets in range of you, cannot escape. Now, we have seen the game reset a little bit after that first Punisher, opened the map up a tiny bit for Miracle, but not a significant experience lead here. And this is basically a dead even game minus a tiny bit of map control.
Yeah, and that map control, not being an entire fort, is usually not going to be something that holds a team back. But both the teams end up withdrawing to their respective Shaman camps. Going to be trying timing that with the map objective. We don't see either team with the global, so no clear advantage by any means for one or the other. It's really just going to come down to if they get a small skirmish, whoever gets the pick, or again, who gets the advantage on the shrine phase that is spawning down below. Does anybody stay for the clear here? Task gains the advantage over Tyrael if they do, but neither opt into that. In the mid lane, no ball, it gets picked off. At the inverse of what we saw already at level 1, Arthas is trying to get the peel, but Tist is going down and will reset, get out. Kerrigan says no, not today. And this is terrifying. The map objective is spawning here while we see the 3 picks that gave them a half-level experience lead, and Kerrigan is going to get a free clear, and then the follow-up she's going to provide here. If we see a little bit of hesitation, which we could see Ballistix do, they don't need to force this cap right away. Get the 39 by the time they could stack that with their 10. This could be a very scary moment. We'll see if they end up going down that route here, because look, they are worried about their experience. They might see this power spike.
Absolutely, and Ballistix is like, oh, you want to get 1 kill and take a Punisher? How about we get 3 kills, kill your wall, and then take the second Punisher, which is even stronger.
There it is.
Plus time it with the level 10 power spike. And this is a perfect example of how to capitalize on a mistake. Fall out of position, you get the first kill, chain that into 2 more, get the map objective, time it with 10, and all of a sudden Ballistix is in complete control of this game.
Yeah, I am surprised that Ballistix actually, SCSC clearing into the mid lane. Everybody from Miracle is not even trying to defend because they realize we can't do anything until we get those 10s. I absolutely hope that Ballistix ends up now 5-man committing. We do see the rotation there from the Tyrael. I just want them to go, man. Focus the sidewall dive. You've got Tyrael all day. Let's see the aggression here. If they manage to get it, the leap is going to come out. There it is. No follow-up. The sidewall not down quite yet. So that heavy aggression that I wanted out of them is going to, a little bit more of a pause and hesitation here. Miracle will be able to get their 10 soon. But, it's so satisfying to see that Kerrigan hyper-aggression with Tyrael 7-sided. But sadly, today, we don't get it done.
Yeah, not right at this moment anyway. I'm sure they will be using that to its full power later in this game. Now, Punisher is dead. Bottom fort down, bottom keep wall down for Miracle, so they're in a little bit of danger on the bottom side of the map, lack that control, and you can see how confident Ballistix feels using that to take those Khazra minions. They'll get some damage on the wall, but get cleaned up by Miracle, and now Ballistix a little over a level ahead, just, kind of playing slow, kind of playing safe back on their side of the map. They're really waiting for the next trying to come up.
Yeah, Noblesse is going to get rooted here by the Arthas. He gets the Dwarf Toss out. Kerrigan's not there, so they realize they are not going to be able to contest this. And you were talking about the survivability here of Miracle's composition. I do think that 16 mark, if we do not see Ballistix get a insane advantage at that point, that is where we might be able to see them finally kill that momentum, turn it around outside of what could be Darvish with the true MVP, Twilight Dream. Howling Blast comes out, combo's not going to hit. Rain of Vengeance, Jungha's in a very bad spot. Tyrael's not there to be able to get the Sanctification. He's running away from his Tyrael. SCSC's not going to be able to get that, and they end up getting the pickoff here. Force Wall out, uses Sanctification, but right now, Miracle is fully capitalizing on the misposition here of Ballistix.
This on that Arthas is absolutely monstrous, starting that fight off with a 2-man root, forcing a bunch of cooldowns out of Ballistix, and then as they try to escape, Kerrigan got a bit of a mixed signal, went in on the backline, couldn't make anything happen, and now Miracle wants to get the most they can out of this, and a beautiful Twilight Dream will silence 3 people, giving them so much time, but Ballistix is so slippery. Look how hard it is. All of that spent to get 1 kill.
Yeah, 1 kill, and it seems like every time one of the teams end up losing a member, it is as the shrine spawns here. Now onto the upper half of the map. Ballistix need to make sure they capitalize on this 15-second man advantage. Jungha realizes the circumstances that his team is under. Is going to try and get the clear as best he can. Nobody's going to be able to get the scalp for him quite yet, so we'll see if Miracle is going to get the flank onto him. And it looks like they're going to give it. Jungha is just suiciding almost at this point. The 4 versus 5 is coming into play. The combo going down. He ends up falling. Tis is very well healthy. Reset is trying to confirm more. Swoy and friends do have a 4 to a draw to. I'm going to be honest, that I cannot see a situation where I understand the decision making with nobody scouting on the side of Ballistix. Like, I see the panic in decision making, but I can't help but go, that is not nearly as calculated that I would expect to see from a team as dominant as Ballistix and with such a refined draft as theirs.
Absolutely, and it just seems like Miracle is making the right plays even when they're down, even when it feels like they shouldn't be. They're getting the right positions. Ooh, nice wall by Sniper, zoning Nobles quite a bit. Prescience. I don't think it will be enough. There we go. Okay.
The Prescience are still going to be available. They burnt the E relatively early. But now Punisher is wailing away. Top 4 is going to be falling down here. Ballistix, are they going to back to try and get the response? I think that's the most appropriate for them. They have a lot of counter engage if they made it over to the wall and then tried to end up putting themselves in a position to Sanctification onto the backline. Twilight Dream is available, and it really goes who gets it off first. Is it Twilight Dream or is it the Sanctification? Either way, whoever ends up getting it will put this team in a pretty position here, as MVP Miracle has now managed to turn the game around with a half-level advantage.
Absolutely. They have to be feeling really nice about that. You know, after that devastating loss, those 3 heroes right before the second Shrine phase, I thought Miracle was going to fall apart, but they are showing excellent resilience here, using this composition and just taking control of the fights that they can win. When you see, even now, when the Arthas and Sonya get on someone post-10, it's so much damage and so much disruption on the backline. Ballistix has a hard time dealing with it, and I think the fact that Ballistix did not find enough of an advantage in the early game is going to make it difficult for them.
I agree, and also with, you were talking about the viability of Karzim in general as a support, whether or not he does have a spot. I agree with you that I think that he is in a weird position here on when he does have the viability for his team. And without having Sanctification into effect, which it's almost had 0 impact so far into this game, I think that is part of the reason is that they don't have a Karzim to be able to back them up with top tier supporting as well. Sanctification needs to be on point, and with SCSC on it versus Jungha, they need to make sure that they turn around their synergy, they work, and they're always on the same page here, because things like dying for that shrine in the upper half of the map is something that they can't have. They have a very coordinated composition for Ballistix, and Miracle has completely punished them.
Definitely. It does seem like, so this is something we didn't mention. We're looking at a fight here. 7-sided strike not getting very much value on reset, and
Twilight Dream
wants to go on Sniper, but he's not making it happen. Kerrigan is getting focus fired by Arthas and Sonya in the backline of Ballistix, and that will be the first kill in favor of Miracle. And now how much more can Miracle punish? You see they're diving so aggressively onto this fort. They're going to take down Noblesse despite having Avatar up, and that is a 2 for 0.
Yeah, we were talking that we think that Ballistix composition really does have the advantage in those early halves. As long as everything goes to plan, again, the Sanctification, little to no value. Opponents are running away from it rather than into it. Even if Sanct is in all 5 of your opponents, you have far higher probability of turning around a fight, going to Sanct than you are to a draw, especially into the Arthas. He will always make sure that if you made that minor misplay, you are not going to be able to withdraw to your team. And above all else, MVP Miracle now with the 16 talents here, they have hit the part of the game that you and I were concerned about if Ballistix didn't get that upper hand. Beyond all else, not only do they not have a big lead, they just don't have a lead. Ballistix right now is in a rough spot. And I don't know if Swoy
Waiting on that Radiant dash, probably.
I just don't know if the SCSC has to hit a legendary Sanctification. I really feel for this team to turn this fight around.
Well, it's getting to the point where the front line is so resilient for Miracle that there's no time for Zhongha to find those combos.
Yeah.
When you just have that huge wall of Arthas Sonya bearing down on you, it's one thing when in the early game your combo is actually lethal, but now
you
they'll
just
laugh
tickle
at you.
them.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's the Tash Shield, and then Malfurion's just like, so do we want us to use my cooldowns, or are you going to use your own to stay alive? Because we have a lot of tools to be able to deal with this situation now. But the Punisher moving on to the keep here. Level advantages for Miracle. We do have a bit of a pause here. It seems like there might be a little bit of lag going into play there. At least a pause for a moment. Yes, it was lag. So we'll get back to the game as soon as possible. But right now, this is not necessarily game point, but Miracle has the opportunity possibly. They don't... If Sanctification is used and it's not very effective in this next fight, that could be enough to really turn it. I think if Sanctification saved and only 1 to 2 picks happen, I don't know if Miracle has the core threat. With the Punisher, it'll get baited to mid. I mean, let's be honest, it's too early for that to gain effectiveness, so it really comes down to what heroics are left up. And if all of them are used for both sides and 2 to 3 picks happen, minimum 2, they could end up ending the game here.
Well, it's something to think about. When you have these compositions, look at Miracle's composition. It destroys cores.
Yeah.
So they only need a few seconds window, I feel like, to get that down. Sonya, one of the best core heroes in the game. Vala, excellent at destroying cores. Arthas, actually really good.
It's surprising.
I mean, a lot of people don't think about that sort of thing because it's a warrior. Like, you look at Muradin, doesn't do that much damage to core. You look at Arthas, he destroys that thing. He does so much sustained damage with that Frozen Tempest. So if Miracle can get their 5 men on the core, I don't think Ballistix can actually kill them through Malfurion Tassadar before Sonya just destroys the building.
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about the Sanctification. If Sanct is up, I do think that there might be a small window where they have the opportunity to, because we also have to keep in mind that this is still relatively early. I mean, off the top of my head, not 100% accurate. I believe it's going to be at the 13-minute mark roughly that we're at in this game, which means the core shields are going to be relatively high comparative to the damage stats that we see. So if there are major cooldowns burnt, granted, if all of Ballistix burns everything, and they don't manage to get the kill, it could just be GG at that point in time. It just comes down to the effectiveness and efficiency that we see out of the heroics. And so far, I mean, I hate to keep bringing it up, but SCSC on the Tyrael mixed with the synergy and Zhongha. It's not that his Sanks are always even that bad. It's more that they sure are not on the same page with everybody when they come into play.
When we were watching last game, it felt like everything on Ballistix was to a T. Perfect coordination, stun into kill, and it has not looked like that in this game. We are resuming now a half-health Arcane Punisher.
The leap's coming off cooldown. That's a very crucial point. If they manage to capitalize off of this leap, something good happens. So in a couple of seconds here, there goes the leap going on to the Tyrael. Cleanse coming out. Sanctification not used yet. 7-sided strike. Soy is in a really rough spot here. Radiant Dash has already been used once. Punisher is onto the core. Shield is just barely going down. 99% here. But no major cooldowns for either team. Darvish is slowed a small amount. Noblesse wants this. I don't know. I would not be risking this fight if I was them. Darvish is going to be stunned out there. Eats a lot of damage coming out from Nacho Jin onto the combo. I really feel like this fight is going to be forced and then instantly turned here by Miracle. I can't help by Twilight Dream and Arthas just making this so ugly, but they are still onto their tree. The reason I love that fight for Miracle is even if they lose, their opponents gain little to none unless they full wipe, but if they win 3 people, they win the whole fight, right? Like, it's game. It is, anytime you take a fight on your opponent's side of the map, you increase the probability of lethal because that time is so important to keep track of. But, you know, instead, Miracle is going to back out. They have a level advantage. They're going to play a bit more patient here, and they decide to turn here.
Ballistix really wants to force something before 20. It's at the point, a level and a little bit more means that Ballistix can't just soak back to evenness for 20. The timing of the next shrine will probably be before 20, but it's a big risk if Ballistix waits. So they want something to happen, and that's why you see them forcing this fight.
There's the Sanctification, though. It's going to be 4 people. 7-sided strike's not going to get too much value here. That's the first time we've seen everyone on the same page. Twilight Dream comes out, but it doesn't matter, as already Zhongha has fallen here on the Kerrigan. Noblesse is trying to keep himself up. Rain Advantage is trying to get the peel, but right now it is a 1-for-0 trade. Miracle has the upper hand, trying to get more. The Arthas not having the aggressive positioning to be able to capitalize as well as we saw in some of the last fights. But even when Ballistix got the sanctification for their team, it just still didn't look pretty.
Absolutely.
And I can't help but criticize as well. I mean, we were talking about where is the place for Karazim. I've not looked at Karazim and go, the 7-sided strike really changed the momentum at any point in this game.
When I think about 7-sided strike and where it's truly powerful, you want a pick composition against one tank.
Yeah.
That's where it's amazing. Here, I mean, Ballistix is trying to make things happen, but it really feels like there are too many walls who can eat the damage for each other for that 7-sided strike to be enough of a finishing blow. And as much as Ballistix keeps trying to make things happen, it feels like Miracle is just so tanky with that double support. And unless Ballistix gets an immediate pick, they just are not tanky enough to survive with that Kerrigan Karazim.
Okay, so this is something that seems a bit weird, but there are a lot of things going on here right now. Ballistix needs to be able to force the fight pre-20, otherwise it's going to be a rough spot. As I say that, instantly deleted is going to be Li Ming. Rain of Vengeance going on to Swoi. He's 7-sided strike to survive, but he's going to be eliminated here. Zhang Ha, Arthas will control this kill as well. I was going to take a minute to appreciate the fact that perfectly positioned are 3 catapults on the bottom half of the map, but there's a well to buy a little bit more time to build up the 4th, and that split push would be something Ballistix had to answer to. But when your Li Ming gets absolutely obliterated, it doesn't matter. They're going to be able to move into the core. Catapults are going to be able to aid them as well, and it looks like Ballistix might be able to make this game happen, especially if they end up getting more kills here. 17 seconds on the Li Ming, but those minions are too strong. SESC is doing his best to buy time.
And
but look at the minions. Like, it is just going to rip apart this.
Absolutely.
There are no resets.
Sonya is no slouch at level 20 either. I mean, that core is destined for failure. And we have MVP Miracle taking game number 2 against Ballistix, tying up this best of 2, 1-1, each earning 1 point here. Congratulations, Miracle.
I mean, they just took on the world champion, right? And after watching that first game, I did not go into the second one going, I think Miracle has what it takes. I wasn't too sold onto the draft. Granted, I still question maybe the Karazim, but the Tyrael play across the board was, without a doubt, my kind of crutch point on the failure of Ballistix in that game. But Miracle, you still can't take it away from them. That was very well deserved, very well performed across the board. When I look at a Kerrigan Snowball comp and it legitimately got 1 pick, you're usually doing something very, very right, especially when you see those unorthodox picks like an Arthas coming out where you're like, all right, this might not be that impactful. It did do a lot for their team fight.
Absolutely. And it's one thing for a team to get a little ahead and just, play the game slow.
Yeah.
But Miracle didn't do that. Miracle actually got behind and then recovered. To recover against a team of Ballistix caliber is just a monumental feat in and of itself. So I really do have to give credit where it's due for Miracle. Yeah, they had the late game comp. Yeah, they wanted to go to the late game, and they did. But just the recovery around that level 10 was so well executed, and I have to give them credit for that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one thing that I am looking forward to moving through this tournament even more is anytime that we do see SEC put towards the Tyrael, the effect that it might have onto his team. But the MVP of that match, in fact, is going to be Crazy moving on his Vala, running 4-1 and 8 into that game. And a little thing that a lot of people underestimate, because Crazy moving hasn't made too big of a wake post TNL, is that he almost always, even competing in Super League, statistically is some of the highest performing player, like, across the board. Even when you have names, I mean, like, I feel like Dami is one that comes to mind, Sake, Zhang Ha, like, the performers where you're like, man, those are insane. Crazy Moving always is outperforming them across the board, and his KDA is just something, I feel like this is not going to be the first time we see his name popping up on the MVP screen. Probably every time he wins, it's like, yeah, give it to him, because he really understands positioning and capitalizing on mistakes very, very well.
Yeah, definitely. And we haven't seen much of Miracle on a global stage, but that's not to say they aren't deserving. They are a very high caliber team. And if you didn't know them before, if you didn't believe that before, they just took a game off Ballistix, and that was a very good showing for them, I have to say. They wanted momentum going to this tournament. I have faith that that's going to give them everything they need, so they believe they can beat any team in the rest of this round robin.
I mean, the only thing that you could be asking for, if you are Miracle right now, the only thing you could be like, we needed this to be able to perform that much better, is 2-0ing Ballistix, which is like, I mean, that is a pretty high task to be able to take on this early into a tournament. So the fact they got that 1-1, I completely agree. Their mentality right now, that was just enough of a taste to be like, guys, we might have this. Like, this whole thing, but granted that because the format they have to be able to take out a lot of teams, right? That you can't just be this, well, we're very good at playing our style. You have to appreciate every part of the world and every team's play style here, because we have, I mean, we talked about it before, 3 representatives from Korea, 3 from China, and then we have 1 from North America and Europe. So a little bit of flavor from every part of the world, and what most consider the most dominant, which is going to be Korea and China.
Absolutely. And if that was a preview of everything we're getting at this World Championship, this is going to be a hype event. We have a full round robin of 8 teams to watch during that Dread, all at the global championship level. That is amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. And beyond anything else, just I think we're going to get this weird meta adjustments where it becomes very just cycled, rinsed, and repeat almost to a certain point. So we'll see how that ends up playing out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, but
all right, guys, that is going to be our first match for the Gold Club World Championship on the English stream. Don't go anywhere, though, because we have more matches coming up after a short break.